Bila ku merenungkan kasih-Mu, bagaikan anak dipelukkannya, harapan ditemukanku di hadirat-Mu, Yesus. Kau Tuhan segalanya. Ku rindukan-Mu, ku rindukan-Mu, ku rindukan-Mu, Yesus. Sepanjang janji-Mu tak terbanding, janji-Mu tak terbanding, janji-Mu tak terbanding.
To the one who knows me by name, I know you hear me. No place I'd end up where you would be in hiding. Your love always finds me. When night falls on me and no one seems to notice, I know you see me. From
feel secure. 'Cause when I'm with you, it's when I'm with you, I come alive. My days full of color, I dance through the night. When I see you move, I follow you lead. Yeah. My eyes are on you, and yours. 'Cause when I'm with you, love, I come alive. Yeah. Dance through the night. When I see you move, I follow you lead. My eyes are on you. Here we go. You ready? Yours are on me. You give me joy. You give me joy. You give me joy. You give me joy. How many joyful people do we have in this place? Sing along with me. Say, overflowing, your joy is overflowing in me. Overflowing, your joy is overflowing in me. Overflowing, your joy is overflowing in me. Overflowing, your joy is overflowing joy. Overflowing, your joy is overflowing in me. Overflowing, your joy is overflowing joy. Overflowing, your joy is overflowing in me. Overflowing, your joy. One more time, y'all, take it up high. Overflowing, your joy is overflowing in me. Overflowing, your joy is overflowing in me. Overflowing, your joy is overflowing in me. Here we go. 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 Overflowing, your joy is overflowing in me. 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 How many of you feel the joy of the Lord this evening? How many of you are happy to be in this place? How many of you feel the love of God in this place? The joy of the Lord is our strength, amen. It doesn't matter what life brings me. I got the joy deep in my heart. Fear and trouble may come in the night, but my joy comes in the morning. Did somebody come to praise Jesus in this place? Can I hear an amen? Let's all just sing along, y'all. Here we go. Overflowing, your joy is overflowing in me. Overflowing, your joy is overflowing in me. Overflowing, your joy is overflowing. Y'all sound so nice. Overflowing, your joy is overflowing. Here we go, one more time. Overflowing, your joy is overflowing in me. Overflowing, your joy is overflowing. The joy of the Lord is my strength. Your joy is and my banner. Overflowing. Come on, we're gonna make it louder. Overflowing. Overflowing, your joy is overflowing in me. Overflowing, your joy is overflowing in me. Overflowing, your joy is overflowing in me. All right, here we go. We're gonna take it higher. Let's take it higher. Overflowing joy. Overflowing joy. Overflowing joy.
Welcome back to Sunday Encounter. Today we're coming live to you straight from EveryNationPJ. We have created a special service for you because we just love to talk about love. In fact, we love you so much, we have a special link that will link you straight to the pastors so that we can serve you. Not talking about serving. Coming up next to serve you through moving worship is our very own Wonder Signs. Come on, let's fill our hearts with some love.
This darkness, in the midst of the silence, we will shine even brighter. Sing out your praise even louder. In our moment of weakness, in the moment of so much pain, we fix our eyes on you, Jesus. For you are the answer, you are the way. Devotion, we lay down our crowns in a moment. For you alone I gotta raise, you alone I gotta reign. Forever and ever called out your people to worship you. So now we're totally on to you. You alone I gotta raise, you alone I gotta reign. Forever and ever. Silent. We are in love, we are not ashamed. Glory to God in the highest. Glory to God who forever reign. Pour out a heartfelt devotion. We lay down our crowns in a moment. For you alone I gotta raise, you alone I gotta reign. Forever and ever called out your people to worship you. So now we're totally on to you. You alone I gotta reign, you alone I gotta reign. Forever and ever you reign, and you reign in all of the earth, in heaven above. You reign in all of our lives, invading as God. You reign in all of the earth, in heaven above. You reign in us. Pour out our heartfelt devotion. We lay down our crowns in a moment. For you alone I gotta reign, you alone I gotta reign. Forever and ever called out your people to worship you. So now we're totally on to you. You alone I gotta reign, you alone I gotta reign. Forever and ever. You reign, you're the God who reigns. Hallelujah, we give you honor and praise.
No, I know that you walked on earth as a man. All our sins were nailed into your sinless hands. Oh, I know that you gave it all for me. Jesus Christ hung on top burns within me. Every beat of my heart will sing. Love is alive, it burns within me. of your goodness.
Love is alive. It burns within me.
Share your love never fails. Yes, it never fails. Oh, your love is moving in me.
Thank you for joining us on the topic Finding the One. I know some of you are so excited. Why don't you just go ahead and smash those loves? Okay, whether you're single, searching for the one, dating and wondering if your partner is the one, or even married and still wondering if your spouse is the one, this conversation is for you. In today's culture, happiness is being portrayed, to only happen when someone finally finds the one of their dreams. And, whether we want to admit it or not, we are kind of wired to think that way when it comes to romantic relationships. So today, we're going to just discover some truth together, on this idea of finding the one. So to help us do that, I'm so excited to welcome our featured couple, Josh and Joey Lee.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
Wow, so sweet.
Thanks for having us, Pastor
Well,
Catherine.
thanks for joining us. Okay, come on, tell me, how long have you guys been married?
How long?
Well, we have been married for 3 years, and we just celebrated our 3 years.
All right, good job, Josh. You are counting.
Yes,
okay.
exactly.
Now, why don't you just tell our audience a little bit about what you guys do?
Sure. So my name is Josh, and I am an internal consultant for a multinational company, but I have a part-time job as well. So on the weekends, I'm the head of logistics for my wife's business.
Wow.
Yes. Well, I'm an artist and I own a creative business. So that's why he kind of, handles my delivery, my orders. So that's why part-time with no pay.
You
No
have
thanks.
found the one, Joey.
I have.
You
I
have
have
found the
absolutely
one.
found the one.
Okay, one word to describe your marriage.
Wow.
One word.
I
Only.
would say growing.
Growing. Yeah, I agree, growing. Because I would like to grow taller.
Oh, me too.
Always, since high school. But in more serious note, growing because our relationship, we're just married for 3 years, and there's a lot of things that we're still learning and we're still growing, and we don't want to stop growing.
Yeah.
And us being here today, by no means we're experts
Yeah.
in marriage, but we
Sure.
just really want to share what has God spoke to us, what have we learned throughout this
Yeah.
journey.
Wow. Thank you, Well, before we get into those juicy stories, okay, I just want to let you know that we have this link on Slido, which is enpj.live/Slido, where you can ask relevant questions about finding the one, okay? And we will try to answer some of them later on, okay? All right, since we are talking about finding the one, why don't you both tell us how you found each other?
Juicy.
Just
Yeah.
Well, when we were younger, we actually met in primary school, and I remember she came when she was 11 into my school, and
Did you say 11? I
Yes,
mean, you were
11.
looking when you were 11?
Well, she came and she was pretty cute, so I was like, she is still cute now. And I remember, it is my memory, I remember we had kind of a spark when we first met.
Sure.
But we were young and had to move to Australia, so nothing really came out of it. But I made sure that I kept in touch with her. And so when I came back from uni after Australia, guess who was the first one I contacted to when I'm back? Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
I mean, as he said, we were friends, we knew each other for a long time. But I think it all kind of really started when he came back, and
Sure.
that was when we decided that maybe we can explore to be more than friends. But I guess since me being me, wanting to make sure that I am finding the one,
Of
so I took
course.
my time and I told him, I said, let's just get to know each other better. Yeah, and I think we did that without being exclusively dating. So for about 6
nice.
months, I would say, we got to know each other, explore that friendship further. And I think what I really enjoyed is during that period of time, because we maintained that friendship and we wanted to get to know each other as friends, that kind of brought through our dating and even until our marriage today. So yeah.
So what do you mean? Maybe you can explain a little bit by like not exclusive. What do you do?
Yep. So
That's fine.
I think not exclusive as in we won't, hang out just the two of us, but we'll make sure that there's friends around us. We'll hang out together.
So more like
Exactly.
a friends group.
Yeah,
kind
to
of-
get to know each other, I think if it's just me and him, he'll portray all his best part for me.
That's
So
right.
Yeah, correct.
All right. You know, I like the fact that you both have a friendship first, okay? And because most people, they would just jump from stranger to lover, you know?
Yep.
And I used to tease those guys, you know, that they are always going hunting.
Hunting.
And they missed out on enjoying a good, healthy relationship with the opposite sex.
Yeah.
You know, and guys, if you're wondering why you couldn't figure out a woman, I think stop hunting, start relating.
Yeah.
Wow.
And, you know, I mean, to be fair, also, ladies, you know, don't just think that every guy is hitting on you. I mean, stop
Absolutely.
giggling and, I mean, start relating, okay? Relating, okay? That's so important. Be friends.
Yep.
Okay, so what was it like when you both were single? Like, did you date a lot, or, you know, were there pursuers? Yeah, how was it like?
were there pursuers?
Me pursuing you?
How many days since you started 11?
I go first. Yeah, I mean, well, I think I have always been kind of, you know, serious about dating. I think even growing up, I've always thought about, I want to be with someone that I potentially would get into a marriage with.
Wow.
So, well, before.
So you won't start at 11?
Yeah, I won't start 11. But definitely before my husband, I had one relationship before that.
Yeah. Wow, good.
Yeah.
Just one.
Yeah, just
Well, for me, because I'm curious, so I started hunting at 11. I was curious because a lot of my friends, I'm not going to give names here today, but a lot of my friends,
Yes.
they already started to date. And I was like, oh, they seem happy. They seem like it's something fun.
Sure.
And I did sort of get into a relationship. But after that ended, it really made me think about, okay, is it just about fun and games? Is it just about so that I can, you know, show off to my friends? But I realized actually I want to date now with someone that I really want to spend my life with moving forward.
That's right. So when we are talking about finding the one, we are talking about the one that we want to spend the rest of our life
Yeah.
with, right?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, love is not a game of hit and run, okay? So finding the one is really for a lifetime.
Yeah.
Okay, so what were your thoughts on finding the one when you guys were singles?
Wow. Well, I think definitely as a young girl, the thought of finding the one is actually quite scary because
I know.
there are so many people on earth who will be the one, you know?
Yes.
It's like, I think more importantly, I was pretty afraid to find the wrong one.
That's right.
yeah.
Wrong one for the rest of your life. That's a nightmare, okay? How about you?
Well, for me, I didn't think of it as finding the one, but as an analyst, I have my own checklist, about 50 things on that checklist to say she must be this, she must have long hair, she must know how to speak Chinese, things like that. But I think if you think about it, it's kind of also trying to find for the one.
Yeah.
But it was so high of a bar that honestly the girls that I've met, they never meet that checklist. And so I never really got into a relationship after
Yeah.
that because they never meet those checklists.
Yeah, you know, it's so true. So many singles out there. It's so stressful when you talk about
Yeah.
finding the one. Okay, but okay, now that you are married, okay, did that change? And how has this changed? Okay, in the way you think about finding the one. Okay, maybe we can learn from that.
Well, I used to think that finding the one, and that's why I have a checklist, was to find a perfect woman that's able to make me happy, right? The checklist is basically what I want out of her.
Sure.
You know, I definitely found a great woman, but
Yes.
now that I'm married, I realized she's not the perfect one to make me happy.
No.
And
I'm
it's
not.
and it's because we ourselves, you know, we both have our own flaws, and when you come to a marriage thinking that you're finding the one to complete your happiness, it's just going to shatter your expectations.
Yeah.
Right? And an example is when I was young, I was really good at everything, so I thought that this is what impressed her, and she's going to respect me and love me because I'm really good and smart and everything. But when we got into a relationship, she actually showed that I'm prideful. And that caused a lot of conflict. And it's because of the expectation I thought, oh, she's just here to accommodate me. So it's really about not finding that perfect one to complete my happiness.
That's true.
And just to add on to that, I remember listening to Pastor Stephen Furtick's message, and he kind of just brought in that fact that we always just focus on looking for someone to complete us, to make us feel
Yeah,
the
I know
best and
that.
everything, which I think it's pretty common and we probably have fallen into that before.
Trap,
But
yeah.
unfortunately, that's just not, like if you're incomplete and you think that you find another incomplete person coming together, you're not going to be complete because the equation
right.
doesn't come half plus half is one. But
Yes.
he said, in the Bible, God didn't make that half man and half woman coming to one, but he made one full
One,
man
yes.
and one full
Plus
woman
one.
to come together to be one.
Yes, and
So
be a
I
better
think
one.
that is so true. Like we have to be completely satisfied and happy as a person before we can look for someone.
Someone else. Okay, so singles, you need to be the one happy,
Yep.
fulfilled, satisfied person. Okay, before you go finding that someone. All right. So it's not so much about maybe finding the one, but more being the one. Okay. So I thought maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just to share a little bit from my experience and from a young girl's, perspective and desire. I think most of us growing up, we would have watched television,
Yeah. For
sure.
movies, maybe even read books about
Waiting for that white knight.
Prince Charming.
I
Prince
did.
Charming.
Yes, Prince
Yeah.
Charming.
I mean, okay, whether we want to admit it or not, I was not always like, okay, I'm waiting for my Prince Charming, but it just kind of wired me to think and have a certain expectation of the man, that I want to
Yes.
marry and all that. And that focus has always been that. And well, the result is when I stepped into my first relationship, obviously it was frustrating and shocking because I realized like, oh my gosh, it's not what I'm expecting, and that's just
Yeah.
the reality of things. And I think when I stepped out of that, it made me realize that it was so selfish of me to just keep thinking about finding that perfect person. And I totally missed out on being the one, I totally missed out on seeing the flaws and my selfishness. So, yeah.
Sure. Because most of us want to just find that someone who can be the one for
Yeah.
us.
Absolutely.
Right?
I think we want someone else to do the work for us. Right? We
no. I
expect
know.
someone to be the one so that we don't have to be the one. But it doesn't work like that, right? Like I
Yep.
expect someone to be the one. They also expect me to be the one. And that's why
Right.
a lot of kind of relationship doesn't work when you come in
Yeah.
with that expectation. It's so much more important to be able to work in ourselves, being the one. And I can admit it's not easy. It's very, very hard.
Sure.
Who is there to admit like I'm flawed? I have so many issues. And so even for my own journey, I needed to go to God and be secure in who I am first. Be secure that I'm free. Whatever I'm going through, God has a purpose for me. That I don't bring that insecurity into
Yeah.
that relationship.
Yeah.
So that is when I learned as I go with God. I became the one so that I can
Wow.
be the one for her.
Wow, that's nice. Thank you so much for your honesty. Maybe we can take some questions.
Questions.
From our audience. Again, it's enpj.live/Slido. If you have some burning questions on finding the one, okay, you can just lock in there. Okay, so why don't we just start with the $1 million question? I believe it's saying, when will I know I'm ready to date? Yeah, I've been asked like 1 million times
Yes.
really on this.
I think number one, you need to have someone that is willing to also date you.
That's right.
Well, to be more serious, for us, the first rule in dating and also the first rule in our life is we need to first learn how to love God. It says in the Bible to love God with all our heart, all our soul, all our mind, and all our strength. Because until we truly learn how to love God, it's only then we know how to love other people as well.
yeah.
And it's the same for the other person. Until they truly learn how to love God,
Yep.
then can they only truly love you. So I think that's like for us, if people ask us as an advice, find someone who loves God. And you yourself, you also have to love God.
Yeah.
I think secondly, very practically, you need to have people journeying with you. People say love is blind for a reason. And sometimes it does make you blind.
Yeah.
You're just so tunnel focused on that relation, on that person. You don't even see their flaws, anything. You
Yeah.
don't see what's wrong with that relationship.
Yeah.
So having trusted people, in church we have the pastors, we have disciples to journey with you, to keep you accountable, to say, and to advise you so that you can really grow in your relationship, so you can really see and address the important things. And I think the third one, okay, hopefully I'm not sounding too Asian here, because, moms always say study first, but I think it's important to be responsible in the things that you are in that season you are.
Yeah.
Because a relationship can be two things. It can be either distracting or it can be, value adding into whatever you do.
Yep,
So
yep.
if you don't have your things in order first and then you try to bring a relationship, I think it's actually destructive to both. It
That's
would
right.
be distracting to your relationship and also to your own, studies, work, whatever it is. So I think
Yeah.
practically you must know where you are at the state so that you can be responsible for the things you need to be responsible for
Yeah,
and also for the
absolutely.
relationship.
Yep.
If not, people say you're going to be doubly miserable.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
And I like that first point about God. I mean, being able to love God. In fact, the Bible also tells us that we are only able to love because He first
Yeah.
loved us.
Yeah.
Yes.
I tell you, and
Correct.
love comes from Him, because He's love. And anyone that does not know Him or can really receive love from Him will be short on loving.
Yeah,
Actually, yeah.
definitely.
I also just want to add there's this 8 building blocks by Pastor Timothy.
Wow.
Yeah, he talked about these 8 building blocks. If you are singles and you're wondering when will you be ready, okay, you check these 8 things. First, all right, authority. Do they respect authority? And I think that's very important because once we counsel, some married people, and like the guy, he doesn't have any authority. So in fact, when we are trying to, help them as pastors, he even look at us and say, "Who are you?
Wow.
You're nobody. I don't need to submit to anybody." You know what I mean? I mean, authority is so important. Without that, then everybody is
Yeah.
just king.
Yeah.
There's no rules, okay? So secondly is responsibility, just like you say, being responsible. Third, proven healthy relationships, which you also mentioned, like you have had good friendships. You must learn that. Okay, and fourth will be making good decisions. Are you good at making good decisions? Fifth, do you love to serve people? Because marriage is really about serving
It
one
is,
another, okay?
absolutely.
And then 6, moral purity, and 7, financial stability, and lastly, if you are a Christian, you need to show your commitment to a church
Yeah.
community because a relationship is a commitment. All right, these are the 8
Yeah.
building blocks. Okay,
Wow.
what's the next question? Maybe you can pick one and read it out. Yeah.
That's interesting. Should we look for date online?
Ah,
Yeah, okay.
What are your thoughts?
So I think the internet is great. It
Yeah.
allowed us to connect to a lot of different people. I
it
think
allow people
yeah,
to watch us.
Exactly. Well,
Okay, good.
that's fine. So last time people only found love in their own village or their small town or
Classmates.
school classmates.
Schoolmates.
Yeah. So I think it's important. It's great that we are able to also kind of bring things online. But I think dating online is a bit more kind of a bit of a caveat
Yeah,
because
red flags.
we talk about friendships, right? It's important to have a friendship. So how well do you know this person that you met online? So I think it's fine if you sort of found them and then wanted to meet and become friends
Yeah.
online.
Yeah.
But to immediately say, "Oh, let's just start dating," I think then you miss out on a lot of things, understanding and
Yeah.
sort of learning what friendship is
Yeah.
from this person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think the answer is not no, like you should not date online or find someone, but use it for, friendships, to look out for potential, but you need to meet that person to see that person if she or he is actually
It's
that
real.
good looking.
Yeah, it's real,
Correct. And I want to add also a lot. Also, just be careful. I know a lot of people is going to online, and that's the new culture. But there's a lot of scammers and people
Yeah.
who want to cheat
So true.
you, cheat
Yeah.
money, whatever they want to cheat.
Yes,
So
yes.
when you try to find someone online, I think it's very important to know the platform that you're in and be careful. I think don't trust everything you see online. That's what they say.
Yeah.
Okay, you pick one, Josh. What is the question that you like to answer?
Yep. Okay, so I have a girlfriend and we often quarrel. What should I do?
Yes.
What should I do?
Wow.
What should I do? Why don't you try that?
From a girl's perspective, Well, honestly, I think that, again, arguments it's going to happen when you are
Yes,
two
all the
different people
time.
coming together.
Yes.
But I think what's most important is, what are you arguing? Okay, so this is our principle when we argue or, when we quarrel. I think we always think of it as we have a friendship and we don't want to just argue for the sake of being enemies, and you're not trying to be enemies,
Right,
you're trying to be on the
right.
same side. So you argue for the better of your marriage or your relationship, for that sense, your dating relationship. So I think does the argument help you to get to know each other? That's one thing. But of course, frequent argument does highlight a lot of maybe selfishness, and things like
Yeah.
that, which you have to evaluate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
Do you want to add anything?
I think it's just. I think a lot of arguments happen because of ego. So I think, like what you say, if you're able to let down your ego and be the one for that person, I think it's very important. So
Yeah. I once learned this, and which is so good. It says that every time when a couple argue, they tend to come to like two sides.
Yes.
Like you're on there
Yeah.
and here. But actually, we should come together
On the same
and
side.
and look at the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, learning to seek to understand what is the problem.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would say that you guys went through premarital counseling. You learn conflict resolution. I think having someone again to help you that you trust, that you can be accountable to, can help, right?
Yep.
So much,
Definitely.
even on this. Okay, we have time maybe for one last question. You guys
Why don't
go
you
ahead.
pick?
why don't you pick?
Pick one.
Okay. How to have sex for marriage?
Safe sex.
Safe
for
sex. sorry.
How to save
How
sex for
to
marriage.
save sex for marriage?
If you already found the one.
Well,
Wow.
I mean, we know that there are certain things so sacred, so special, so mysterious and marvelous that it has to be kept for really the one that you're willing to commit for a lifetime,
Yep.
which is through marriage.
Yeah.
So if your conviction is like that, then you won't be thinking about sex all the time. In fact, to be honest, if we desire sex, isn't it also kind of come from our selfish
Yep.
wanting? Like I want to
Absolutely,
kiss you, I
yeah.
want to touch you. I mean, if we dare to be honest, it actually reveals we want to gratify ourselves. And we are not thinking so much, right, for the other person.
Yeah.
If we love the other person, I always tell the girls, if the guy loves you, he wants to protect you. He wants you to be pure. Right? Ready only for that day.
Yeah.
And I think the very fact of that question is maybe sometimes, our culture portrays sex as a dirty or immoral thing, but I think sex is really what God made and meant to be beautiful in marriage. And there's
Yes.
a very important reason for that. I mean, though we can't say everything today, but I think later on, in the next part where we talk about marriage, you will see why it's so important to, part of it, saving sex for marriage is really about selflessness. It's not
Yes.
to practice selfishness. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. In fact, we are going to dive into talking about, being married, and perhaps you're still wondering if, he's the one. Okay. So we're going to dive into that now. Okay. Social scientists claim that if you find the one and get married, you will be nearly twice as wealthy as those who never marry, okay? Envy us, okay, people, all right? Well, but I hope that's not the reason why you got married. No, that's not the reason why I got married. Though I do think that when we came together, we did become wealthier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe just share a little bit, like what was one of the most shocking discovery you had after you got married?
Well, one of the most shocking things that I discovered when we got married is that Joey disliked ants at home. She doesn't go out,
Ants.
killing ants or anything, but it's just when it's at home, she doesn't like it. And I didn't really know to that extent because one day she found some ants and she asked me to, hey, why don't you deal with it? I'm like, sure, I'll deal with it. So I basically just shoot the ants away, like, hey, go away. That wasn't enough. And she was really unhappy because she thought I didn't take it seriously. But for me, I didn't know that she really sort of didn't stand ants at home. Yeah.
All right.
Well, for me, just to give some context, because I grew up having my own room, my own bed, and I'm a light sleeper, so potentially that helped with, sleeping through the night. But when we got married, the first night he started sleep talking, and I was like, oh my gosh,
Wow, was
Yeah,
he reciting poems?
I don't know, just random things, middle of the
Right,
night, waking me up, and yeah, so for a good 3 months before I got used to that, so that was really shocking for me.
There's no way I know, right? I could have told her like I still talk at night. So
Wow, Josh, you can't stop talking to her even in your sleep.
yes.
Wow, that's real love. Okay. Now, okay, I want to ask these
Okay.
questions, which I believe many of our audience also will be asking. How did you know he or she was the one that you wanted to marry?
Well, how I knew Joey was the one that I wanted to marry ultimately came down to the friendship that we have.
Yeah.
Right, so I think for a lot of you, watching here today, it will be questions like, do you enjoy one another? Do you have fun with one another? Are you able to be yourself in front of them, or do you always have to hide behind something? And can you tell them everything? And I think it's important because when you start dating, it's usually at a stage where your life might be a bit easier, right?
Bed of roses.
Yeah, correct. You might be, just graduated, just started working or working, and not much responsibility at the time. But as you age, responsibilities come in, kids, sickness, you lose your job, you change your job, things like that.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you want your best friend to be the one journeying with you?
Wow.
So that was the key thing for me. Like I could sort of look at her and say she is my best friend, and therefore she is the one for me.
Wow.
I think just some practical things that I think most of us would somewhat discover. It's just that maybe it may not be obvious, but I think it's usually based on these three things where you talk about your values. And probably in terms of like, do you value family? Maybe some people lesser, some people heavy on that. So I think you have to probably settle that before you decide whether or not this person is the one you want to marry. And then you have your belief system, your faith. I think it's so important that we share the same faith because that cuts down certain quarrels, disagreements, arguments. And
Definitely.
I think the last thing is definitely your life goals. Whether it's your career,
whether
what
you're
you want to do.
hating the same way.
Yeah,
in
whether
that
you're
sense.
hating the same way, or it's just as simple as like, are you going to Australia or not? Or am I going to be here? I think things like this will affect your marriage, and you have to kind of get that settled before you say yes to a married life. But I think most important for me, I think how I determined that he was going to be the one was actually. I think during the dating period, he has shown a clean record of being, very. How do I say this? He's able to admit his weaknesses.
Wow.
When as he said, he was
That's a real
flexible
man.
and everything,
man.
But I think the most concerning things for women sometimes is when the man doesn't want to admit their mistakes
true.
and try to be perfect when they're not. And same thing. But yeah, I think that showed me that he was willing to humble himself, to change, and to be the one for me. I think that was, that was what I discovered and gave me the confidence to say yes to marrying him.
Wow. I totally agree. It's not just about, someone loving you or can accept the way you are, but more importantly is the person wants to be the one, wants to be better, wants to change for you. Okay, so it seems like we keep coming back, to this point. Like, it's not just about finding the one, but being the one. But finding the one that wants to be the one for you.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, finding the one that wants to be the one for you. Okay, so can you share what being the one looks like in your marriage?
In marriage.
Yes.
In our marriage.
In our marriage. You have to first understand then what is marriage, right? Marriage is two selfish people, admit it, don't deny it. We're all selfish people. And you're not just coming to stay together. That would be a roommate, right? You could just found a roommate for that. But you're coming together to try to thrive in life, to do well in life, right?
Wow.
Marriage is not about, we come together and be miserable. It's us learning how to do life and do life better together.
Yeah.
So once you understand that you're ultimately selfish, that's number one. Then the second is you have differences. We have differences. On this very small basis, very simple stuff, she likes to clean up after every meal immediately. Where I'm like, okay, I can wash it after. It's more efficient if everything was there and I wash it one time, right? So that's a very small thing. But it can even be big differences where, her family and the way they deal with conflict is that they're very confrontational, they're very direct. For us, as my family, we're less of that. We like to sort of take things a bit slow and resolve it slower. So when we came together, it's hard because there's things that she's comfortable with and there's things I'm comfortable with, like,
Yes.
Yeah,
an
of course.
argument.
Yeah.
Woo, let me not talk about it now, but she's like, let's talk about it now. So we revert to our selfish self and say,
Yeah.
what are we most comfortable with? So being the one in that sense is then learning how to be selfless. Not selfish, but selfless.
Yep.
Right? It's so easy to say, but it's 10 times harder
So
to do.
hard to be
It's so
selfless.
hard to do. And that's why for me, I knew I needed to tap upon God. Because for me to be selfless, I needed to come to God and say, what is it that God wants me to do? Because I'm not selfless because she's right or she has the moral authority or whatever, but I know that God is leading us and she also goes to God for the same thing. So being selfless is definitely something that you would see when you be the one in a marriage, and that really amounts to you both coming to God.
Wow. Can you imagine how beautiful marriage is and can be? With two selfless people wanting to be the one for each other.
Yeah.
I would call that heaven and earth.
Yes,
Heaven
definitely. I
and
would
earth,
think so too. Yeah.
And because it's heaven and earth, we want to get that, right?
Yeah.
So here's my last question for you two. Okay, how do you get to be selfless and be the one for each other? Yes.
I think to answer that question, maybe I can share a fresh out of the oven recent story.
All right, juicy,
Yeah.
juicy, okay, juicy stories.
That happened in our marriage. Of course, we are not perfect, therefore, still
Sure,
learning, still
sure.
growing. And I think the most recent is definitely we are currently looking for a new house. And with just that, that already just kind of brought us into a conflict because we're just different. Yeah. And so just to share a bit, Josh had this idea. We have a different idea of what a perfect home or what a great home would look like. So
Yeah.
for him, it was the convenience,
Yeah.
like in terms
Near
of
my
driving,
work.
somewhere,
near the
Sure.
city.
yeah, near him.
Super practical.
But maybe I'm not as practical because I'm the artist, the designer.
Yeah, we need the beauty,
Like
the
I
vibe.
care a lot about how the design of the house look like. The look, the
environment,
surrounding, the
yes,
environment and all
yes.
that. So obviously we have different priorities when we talk about looking for a house. And I think in that process we came to realize that we are very, very different in this perspective, and that made me actually came to this realization that, wow, when we were dating, you would think that when we were dating, we're so compatible, that's why we got
Yeah,
married
yeah,
and
yeah.
everything. But then you come into a marriage, you're like, you're so not compatible in so many things.
Yeah, which is why so
Yeah.
many married couples, they wonder sometimes.
Yes, yes,
if their
it's true.
spouse were the ones.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I think I could so easily fall into that trap of thinking
True.
that, wow, I'm just looking for a house and we are already not compatible on this. How are we going to even build our future together? But I think that's why it's so important that we both are of that same faith. We share the same faith, and we both agreed that rather than focusing on what we want, actually, what does God want? Yeah.
Wow,
So I
that's
think
a
we
nice
came to agreement that we need to go individually and ask God, not me telling him, I think this is what, I think and all that.
Sure.
So we did that. We gave each other some time, to just be secure in God and just allowing God to speak to us
Yeah.
individually. And then when we came together, we both realized that God just revealed to us in our own time with him how selfish we were
Wow.
in, even in this
Nice.
marriage of wanting to learn to grow together. But I think that's why it's not about I mean, I can't get out of that selfishness by myself, and therefore, I'm glad that we both are aligned to, wanting to go to God to help us to be less selfish, to
Definitely.
help see our flaws and work together towards a better marriage.
Yep. He is so good.
Exactly. So I think then going to God, and being the one, like we said, being the one is ultimately being selfless and, being able to search for. It's just a decision. It's a
Yeah.
decision that we both decided to say, let's just go to God. And God is so gracious. Every time we
Yeah.
come to Him, God just say, okay, this is how you do it, right? God is never angry, and He's
Yeah.
always willing to share His wisdom, right? He wants
Yeah.
us to have a happy marriage, a
Yes,
great marriage that honors
yes.
Him. And there are seasons we don't do it well. There are not all questions we say, hey, let's just go pray. We should, but the ones that we do, we know that we are aligned, and we are aligned not just amongst ourselves, but also to God.
Yeah.
And I think it's also very important to then recognize that coming to God and finding God is not just so that we can have a happy marriage.
Yeah.
It's not so that we don't have a quarreling marriage, that we can be aligned. It's so much more.
Yeah.
Because in Colossians chapter 2 verse 10, it says that when you come to Him, that fullness, the fullness of life comes to you as well. Because His power, God's power, extends to everything.
Yeah.
So coming to God is great that you be the one, be selfless, learn how to be selfless in marriage, but so much more. I've learned how to be a better son, a better friend, a better brother. I've found my purpose. I found my peace. I found my freedom.
Yeah.
And I've
Which
also
a marriage can not necessarily help with that.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so it's so important that we come to God. And like I say, the first rule of everything, which is to love God with everything. And that's what we believe in. And we hope that people here today are also able to find not just happiness in a marriage, but also a joy in life that only God can give today.
Yeah. It's clear to us that both of you kept saying that you have made a decision, to go to Him, and that's really because you see that the fullness of life really come from Him.
Yeah.
I mean, not just a happy relationship, comes from Him, and so ultimately, it's not just about finding the one that will be the one for you. I think we are also saying that it's about finding God to be the one that leads us, right, in a happy and beautiful life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So, I've been married to Pastor Cal for 12 years.
Wow.
Okay, coming up this March. And we can definitely testify to that. We also, always, depended on God, and we are so glad that we found God to be the one, for us. And, without Him, I think we'll be pulling each other. There's so much hair left. Okay, I don't know where we'll be really without Him.
Yeah.
Okay, and the Bible tells us that God is love, and
Yeah.
He first loved us, like I've just said, so that we can love. And it was impossible for me to learn how to even love my husband without Him. Yeah. So, and God is also not just about each other, but God has also been the one for us in our
Yeah.
relationship with Him, isn't
Yes.
it? I mean, He
Yes.
came and looked for us, died for us, to save us so that we can have a relationship with Him,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, so we want to now answer some questions from our audience, all right? Okay, let's start with this one.
Yeah.
How do we keep our love alive in our marriage?
Wow, that's a very good question.
Yeah, very good.
And I am
Definitely.
glad that the person recognized that love it's a living thing. So you need
Yes.
to keep alive.
Yeah,
That's
it's not
right. You have to feed it.
naturally.
You have to
it will
feed
be
Yeah,
it.
you have to
alive.
fit
Yes.
it. It's not like a law, right? But I think it's also very important to understand that love is not just a living thing. And I think a lot of people equate love being alive as a passion, as a fire that you need to keep burning. Because if you look into the Bible, in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, it says that love is patient, love is kind, and a lot of other things. And when you look into that, it's actually describing love as more of a commitment. right? God never says love is buying chocolates on Valentine's Day. Love is patient, love is kind. It's something that we commit to do, a promise that we have. So a lot of vows, they use all these things. So ultimately, love is coming to a commitment of what you have promised in your vows, and also promise to be patient and kind. Because if once you decided not to do that, that's where, love dies.
Yeah.
And marriages dies
Yeah.
from there.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important to have that view to say, it's a commitment, but, right, I know, but people say, but how can I be patient?
Yes.
It's not easy.
Yes.
And that's why for us, and the way we look into is we need God. And I've learned how to be patient, how to be kind from coming to God and say, God, teach me how to do it. Yes.
Because He is love Himself,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. And
Yes.
I mean, the best way to, really kind of practice your patience, your love, and all these things is really, whether it's your disagreement, from smallest thing to cleaning the
Yeah,
household
for sure.
items, whatsoever. But I think it's important to also do certain things like date nights, things to get to know each other, quality time,
Yep.
spending, having conversations, which we love. I think
Yep.
that's how we keep our love alive
Yep.
by, being patient in hearing each other out.
Yeah.
I think that is,
Yeah. And you grow
Yeah,
in the
and
quality of
yeah,
your
Yes.
we grow
friendship,
together.
forever.
Correct.
Okay. I can see the next question coming up.
Wow, so this is a top question apparently.
Yes, yeah. Maybe you can just read it out.
So I am not religious, and the person I'm dating is. Now the church thinks that I'm not the one for the person I'm dating. Will the church also determine who is the one? Wow, this is a very deep question.
Well, maybe can I just jump in
yes.
for
Yeah,
that?
go ahead.
I mean, I do not know how that the church, or you think that the church thinks that you are not the one. I think the church or the pastors do not decide your life.
Yeah.
Everybody is responsible to live their life. Saying that, and I want to tread slowly and cautiously. We are not sidelining anyone, but if you are a follower of Jesus and you want to follow what the Bible teaches, then it advises us to have the same faith and belief, because that's the foundation for a lot of the decisions and goals that you have to make in life. I mean, just like some of those that just Josh and Joey has shared. But we do not decide or determine or judge anyone in that manner, but we are just following what we believe.
Yeah.
This is what we believe. And it's true to us. But everyone can choose to believe what they want to believe, and we will never impose on you. And if that has come forth that way, I really want to apologize to you from the church to make you feel that way, because that is not the type of God that we have. In fact, God puts these things to help us, to govern us. When I was in helping focus on the family, it says that these are perimeters, to keep us from falling off the cliff, in that sense. So actually God's truth is always to protect us and not to rule us viciously or, I mean, how to call that, selfishly, or, to pain us, for that matter. I don't know. You guys can add, maybe just more that.
I think I agree to Pastor Catherine. I think the church, as Pastor Catherine representing the church, we wouldn't tell someone that this is not the one for you. But
Yes, never.
We have no right to
you have no right to
determine.
everyone,
I have
you can make
never
your-
said that.
You can make your decision, but I think from a practical perspective, right? Let's not talk about just Christianity perspective, but you talk about religion perspective. It's always good to come together to have the same values. And a lot of the values that you are is based on sort of the faith you have.
Yeah, your
Yeah.
belief
Correct,
system.
Correct, your belief
Yeah,
system.
belief system decides.
So to us, when we advise people to say, hey, it's good to have someone in the safe system, it's really helping you, right,
To
align.
reduce your amount of arguments. I
Correct.
mean, it's
Actually.
just going to, if we have different belief, totally different belief system. Most of the time, if he is very strong in his faith and I'm just not, and I don't really care, then what matters to him does not matter to me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
ultimately, I feel that is why, maybe why it seems like you're not the one, but there's just, it's up to
Yeah.
you. You have to decide it for
That's
yourself.
right.
Yeah.
You know, even if you are both Christians, I
Yeah.
will not tell you that that
Correct.
is the one for you.
Yeah,
I mean, there are so
exactly.
many Christians coming together,
Yeah.
and actually it didn't work out because they're still selfish.
Correct.
I mean, and we can all be selfish,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, and it's an individual, honesty to
Yeah.
wanting to follow God that makes everything beautiful.
Correct.
Yeah, and just because you're Christians doesn't mean your marriage is going to be beautiful if you still want to be selfish, all right? Just
Yeah.
want to note that. Okay, but thank you so much for asking so honestly. And in fact, can I invite you to just hit that link to connect with us and maybe talk to us so
Yeah.
that we can clarify and, hopefully, heal that hurt, if that's still hurting you. All right?
Okay.
All right, go.
One
Do you
more
want to do
question.
one more question?
One more question?
Yep.
All right. Well, it's another top question. What if my partner does not love God as much as I do after we get married? Before that, there was much more effort to come to church, but now it's like he doesn't care. So, wow, it's a
Yeah.
tough question. I think this is probably coming from a woman perspective. It seems like,
Yes.
yeah. Well, I mean, I'll probably try to attempt to answer this. I think that I would be able to relate if, let's say, my husband comes to church. I mean, after we got married, and then he stops, wanting to be involved. But I think the question was asking in a very maybe religiously coming to church, and
Correct.
that's why maybe before we even get married, I think sometimes we have to really understand and know each other. That's why the friendship is so important to
Yeah.
establish that first. But
Yeah.
now that you are already in a marriage, well then, how can I, if it's in this scenario, I think I would then ask myself, how can I be the wife to help him to see
Definitely.
and represent God in that sense, to help
love
him to
him
want
back.
God. Yeah, no,
Yes.
to help him to want God first, and
Yes.
so that he can want to love God by himself rather than me forcing him.
Yeah. I remembered earlier you shared that while you were dating, you saw signs
Yeah.
of Josh, coming to God, repenting,
Yeah.
admitting his pride, admitting his weakness.
Yeah.
I mean, these are all, I feel you can pick up,
Yeah.
coming to church may not necessarily, be the sign that someone is in love with God, actually. They could be coming to church to do other things or for many other reasons. But I think it's the real life change
Yeah.
that we allow God to do
Yeah.
in us. And also, secondly, I want to point out that you mentioned that how both of you decided to allow God to be the one, to lead you is because you believe
Yeah.
that the fullness of life truly comes from Him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what you believe,
Yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
want to say
Correct.
something on that?
I think it's ultimately, again, coming to being aligned. And I think we had also this conversation where I feel as a husband, and I'm speaking from a man's perspective, it's our duty to lead the relationship and the family, right?
Yeah.
But the question is, where do you lead it from?
Yeah.
Do you lead it in the perspective that the wife would agree and would sort of respect and would come to an agreement with? And so for us, it's very easy to decide and say, I need to lead this family and this relationship. And when we say lead, it's not like she has to follow all my, everything I decide. We still
Yeah.
talk about it, but I
Yeah.
still need to have the wisdom and the courage to say, this is what God is telling us for this particular thing or this relationship. So we are aligned. So when I come to God and I lead this relationship, she knows that I have, in a sense, consulted with God. And therefore, it makes our relationship aligned to that.
Yeah.
So that's sort of what I wanted to add to that as well.
Yep. You know what? When we talk about love, time just flies. Okay, because there's so much to talk
Yeah,
about it.
there
All right,
is.
but that's why we have this real good news for you out there. Okay, if you are singles, we have a special platform, all right, for you to meet the opposite sex and learn to build healthy relationships, okay?
Yeah.
And really our heart is just, I think it pains us to see so many singles don't have a healthy platforms, and to learn how to relate, be friends to the opposite sex, okay? So, yeah, if that's you, you want to learn how to do that, it's all online, it's free from you. The links are shown right now, I believe. And if you are married, and you are wondering how to grow that love,
Yeah.
how you can learn with other married couples, okay, for sure, Josh and Joey will be leading that, okay? We are organizing online date nights, okay, for you.
date
Okay,
nights.
how good is that, right? You don't know what to do, okay, just come. All right, the links again are shown there, and I'm sure that, in those safe, respecting, loving community, we can learn and
Yeah.
grow together.
Yeah.
Okay, we do not know everything,
Yeah.
but we know that we would like to learn. And more importantly, we have a God that gives that fullness of life, whether you're single, whether you're dating, whether you're married. He can ensure that your life is happy and full.
Yeah.
Amen? Right. Okay. So also, I just want to say that if you need prayers, we have the links, at the descriptions for you. If you want to talk to us, there's a WhatsApp link that straight, bring you to us. And well, that's all, okay? And good to have you, all right? Thank you so much, Josh and Joey,
Yes.
all right? Any last thing you want to tell them?
No, I think,
Join us for
join
date
us
night.
for date nights, be the one, and find God.
Well, we hope that you had, as much fun as we did, okay? So for families, there's also a Zoom link, okay, if you just want to check us out, yeah? But for real fams, you know what to do. We are going to do a Zoom after this. And lastly, just before we go, we want to give to our God and show Him our love just through our offerings. Yeah, and that's what you do if you love Him, and that's what you want to do. The information will be shown shortly after this. So thank you so much. Good night, and see you again next week.
I lift my voice to the one who knows me by name. I know you hear me. No place I'd end up where you would be in hiding. Your love always finds me. When night falls on me and no one seems to notice, I know you see me. From high and holy place, you're still with the lowly. Your love always finds me. Every uncertainty bows in your sovereignty. You are good and you're able. Every battle you lead into victory. You are good and you're able. You are good and you're faithful. Whatever comes my way, you're right here beside me. This is your promise.